Well, good evening, good people. Mark Holmes here. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. It's Thirsty Thursday. Shout out to Philly 500 and Eagles Nation. We had a little bit of a live stream, and it was cordial. It was cordial for the most part. At this time of year, there's no point in blowing your wad right now against the Eagles and stuff. And I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be humble and stuff and hopefully lull them to sleep because, I want them to think that they're the big tough guy and that they're just going to blow through the division and all their games and everything else. So when they get punched in the mouth, that they don't know what to think. George Pickens, I love the move. I absolutely positively love the move. In fact, I love the fact that he's saying, I don't need a new contract. I want to prove myself first. Now, that could be one of two things. He may really want to prove himself so he can get the big contract with the Cowboys, or it could be he's just happy about being out of Pittsburgh, that he looks at it and says, if I play 1 year for the Cowboys real good, I can go wherever I want to go. I don't know where else he'd want to go, but that's the possibilities. But the Cowboys getting him actually creates a little bit of a dilemma, not for this year, but for next year. Because right now we're sitting here where we're allegedly have a handshake deal for Micah Parsons to be signed. That's just a matter of talking with the agents and getting his okay. But with George Pickens will be a free agent at the end of the season. So this ends up bringing up the question of, is this a guy that you want to bring back? Now, you could franchise tag him, which is a possibility if you're not ready to and you deem that he's a guy that you can't afford to lose, or you could let him go and take the comp pick. Here's where it's going to be tough is he's not going to be the only big name player that you're going to have that's going to be out there. So you're going to end up having Daron Bland. He's in the last year of his deal. You end up having, not to mention all of these free agents that we've signed for 1 year deals, but I'm talking about the major players. Somebody like Dante Fowler, of course, only has 1 year. Like I said, Daron Bland is definitely one of those ones. And now you've got George Pickens, of course, our kicker. He's a free agent, and you're going to have to pay. And you only have one franchise tag that if you deem and say, we can't get these things done, these guys will be all free agents. So now this is a dilemma that you have to figure out who you're going to pay. And so here's an article that came across the wire here, which is kind of interesting to say the least and kind of shocking and as well. And we can look at this from a couple of ways on whether or not they should pay him. Daron Bland has had an impressive start to his NFL career and is expected to part ways with the Cowboys. Bland is headed into the final season of his rookie deal, having given the Cowboys a massive, disproportionate return on his $3.97 million rookie contract. He is set to make some significant bank in his fifth year, but probably won't be with the Dallas Cowboys. According to Pro Football Focus's Mason Cameron, who has Bland down as the number one free agent cornerback for 2026. The NFC East outfit is already paying Trayvon Diggs a massive sum after agreeing to his 5-year, $97 million deal in 23 and isn't expected to keep both players. They haven't opened extension talks with Bland and curiously drafted a cornerback this year. So you did get Savon Rebel. And you do have the Diggs contract that's still there. So you have to say, yeah. Now, here's where we can look at this. The Cowboys had another player who was in a similar situation that had played well for him, who was actually a first-round draft pick. And I believe they used a fifth-year option on him before they finally released him. And that would be Byron Jones. Byron Jones, as a free agent, okay, the Cowboys decided we can't pay him. The Dolphins, I believe, signed him. Let me pull it up to make sure. But I believe his contract with the Dolphins was a 5-year, $82 million contract. Yeah, it was a 5-year, $82 million contract. And after 3 years, they terminated the contract because he literally, his leg he came up lame. He came up lame. And so you look at that and say, well, the Cowboys, they were wise not to re-sign him, right? That they were better off not re-signing him to the big payday. He went on to Miami 3 years and he was gone. We didn't get a comp pick because, again, we released him. But now, here's the thing. We start looking at cornerback compensation. Derek Stingley Jr. for the Texans is at $30 million. J.C. Horn is at 25, and Jalen Ramsey's at 24. Patrick Surtain's at 24. Jair Alexander is at 21. If he is the number one cornerback out there, you got to figure he's going to be in the early 20s, maybe even higher because the salary cap goes up. So the question becomes is, do you let him go, or do you look at that as a comp pick? Is this a guy that we can't live without? Because now we have to look back at Daron Bland's stats. His rookie year surprised everybody, 54 tackles, 5 interceptions. And then his second year was outstanding, 69 combined tackles, 16 assists, and 9 interceptions, and set the pick 6 record. Do you want to sign him to like a 4-year, $90 million contract? Remember, last year, he was injured till late in the season. And then you have the situation that we have now, where you're looking at Diggs, and you have to wonder, was Diggs a good investment? Diggs, well, let me go in here, of course, signed his deal. And after signing his deal, he signed his deal in 23, has not been producing that well. Tore his ACL. He was out for the whole season. And then this year he comes back. He ends up messing up the other knee. And you look at that and say, maybe the Cowboys would have been better off not paying him. I don't have the answer to that. I really don't. But they are right. You can't pay everybody. Now, I did point out, if you end up getting Micah Parsons' deal done, you get cap relief this year. You can roll money over that you don't spend, and you'd have the trigger for next year where you could reduce him, as well as the trigger for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. You may not want to pull the trigger on Dak Prescott because he is getting older. The thing I look at right now with the Cowboys, you don't know what you don't know as far as Dak's health. I think the Cowboys did the right thing, that they're trying to get the offensive line in front of him so we don't have a Tony Romo situation. I think they did a great thing in getting Pickens for a target. And, I would continue. I wouldn't stop right now. I have to say, the Cowboys have reset the roster at everything except quarterback. That Dak Prescott, I don't know how many more years he's got. I don't. Maybe he ends up being that this is, remember when Peyton Manning had the neck injury and had to get some of his vertebrae fused, and people thought his career was over? And I think, what did he play, 3 years and 2 Super Bowls for Denver? Well, talking about fused bones in the neck, okay? Dak could play 5, 6, 7 years. But you can't look at that and say, with the recent injuries that he's had, that maybe he may not have that much time. I say 3 years. And so I look at it from the standpoint of saying, I need to look at everything from the standpoint of saying, what can I do for the next 3 years to make this the best team possible? And if that is flipping triggers to kick that money down the road, I do that and try and keep as many great players that I can, or be able to bring some in to try and go through. I think the time to go all in is actually right now. What do you got to lose? What do you have to lose? If you can't win it with having Micah Parsons and Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott and Tyler Smith, you've got cornerstone pieces, then you're never going to win it. So get a couple more pieces right now and say, we're going all in. That's my thought on it. But Daron Bland, it may not make sense because a lot of people look and say, yeah, he is a pick magnet, but he's not the best cover corner. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, people. As always, I appreciate y'all. Peace out.